All right, guys. So let's go over the Plasma Orb Runemaster here. Manual cast Plasma Orb Runemaster. Able to cast also Cold Fire Cold. Able to cast basically any invocation that you want. Super active build. Really fun to play. Extremely good. Can push super high corruption. Definitely one of the best builds currently in the game. It is, although utilizing a specific bug. Well, it's not utilizing it, but like it's like you can't play around it because as soon as you grab this node, elemental penetration right now is giving you 7 times the amount of penetration that it should be. And so if you're stacking intelligence, then you're getting way too much damage from this node. Uh, so that is something I have played without this node, and the build still does fine. It just like it's way less damage. Also, these two nodes don't do anything at the moment in the game. I've just been playing ethically with 4 points invested here because that is how it would be if the bugs were fixed, right? So if the bugs were fixed, this is how I would play my skill tree here. So I'll go over all of the skills. We're using Flame Ward as well. Flame Wards as lightning to give us damage, flat damage, some mana regen. You could go with a more defensive Flame Ward, but right now, how I'm playing it, I don't need the extra defense because you're already so tanky. Rune Bolt, basically changing it completely to fire, giving us auto targeting, giving us some mana back, some crit chance, and also some more damage here with the Rune Weave stacks. So that is how we're playing Rune Bolt. Frost Wall giving us permanent Flame Ward, basically kind of mandatory right now on if you're playing any mage class. This is like super powerful. We're getting reduced mana cost and damage per second of existence to our runic invocation if they are manually casted. That's what I'm going for, and a bit more damage here. Your Frostwall moves, and it costs less mana, so you can like basically cast it on top of you, and it gives you this buff. And also Flame Rush. Flame Rush basically just adds a movement ability. I am using the Epilogue here to cast Runic Invocation when you exit, but you really don't need this. And ideally, you could swap Flame Rush for Teleport if you wanted, or any other skill, and that would still be fine. I am considering, um, actually no, let's not talk about this. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much how I spec my Flame Ward, basically giving you less damage taken and a bit less damage taken. The buffs persist after your flame rushing, um, some ward, stuff like that, right? More distance. So this tree actually doesn't really matter. So how does this go in terms of gear? We are using the Metal Alchemist Ladle. This thing increases your damage dramatically as long as you can get flat damage elsewhere in your build. So where we're getting flat damage, we're getting this from Morning Frost and stacking some dexterity. I have a couple of pairs here, one with movement speed, one with dexterity. So what you really want to do is try to get as much dexterity as possible, but also as much intelligence as possible. Although keep in mind, intelligence will boost your damage dramatically because of this. And so I haven't done the spreadsheeting yet for the damage calculations, but I do think that possibly stacking dexterity might be better for damage, but stacking intelligence is also going to give you cast speed. It's also going to give you critical strike chance. It's also going to give you cooldown. Like stacking dexterity gives you a lot of things for the build, and it's just great in general. So intelligence and dex, very good. I am using a Bone Climber Barbute because of int and dex, obviously. I slammed this with tier 7 intelligence. I'm using fundamental criterion. So the main thing you're going about this is that there's a synergy between Morning Frost giving you flat damage per dex, and also fundamental criterion giving you more damage per dex for invocation with Gone as their second rune. And so Plasma Orb is fire, lightning, fire. So Gone is the second rune. So you're also getting more damage per dexterity with Plasma Orb, right? So scaling Dex and Int is super important in this build. I have a Jungle Queen's Chaps with 2 LP. I grabbed cooldown recovery speed because I wanted to have more cooldown on my Flame Rush, and I don't have good rings for I don't have any good rings that have Dex and Int that are Opal rings that would give me 10% cooldown. So I kind of needed to have some cooldown here. And I get 23 mana on potion use, which is really nice. When you're out of mana, you just spam potions and you're instantly filled back up, right? So keep in mind, none of the well, maybe not none of them, but like some of these, like the belt is not needed for the build to function. It's not, nothing is really needed for it to function. It's just, it improves its damage dramatically, right? I'm using an Omnis, just I just wanted to fix my resistances, and I needed the +1 to all skills because Runic Invocation can benefit quite a lot from this. Going from like having the flat damage here, like having the crit chance here, like a lot of your skills can benefit from it. Flame Ward, all of your skills basically. So using an Omnis here, really bad LP on this. Chance to shred armor doesn't really do anything because you also have shred on your Mad Alchemist level. Yeah, I have a Crystal Skull with plus percentage, like flat crit on my as an implicit. This goes up to 6%. So this is the way to cap your crit. Currently, there's a bug node in the passives, which is never late, which gives you crit chance basically all the time. I am not using this, so I'm trying to use as little bugs as possible as I can, so that I can showcase what this build will be if the all of those are fixed, basically. So you want to go here with something like Crit Strike multi, spell damage. You could go with cast speed. You could go with lightning damage. Um, the portion of the orb that is dealing damage that we want to scale is the lightning portion. So the orb itself is fire, but it's all of its tendrils and what is going to shock enemies at range is going to be lightning. So you could go for that. Other than that, we're going for resistances. Rings, I would love to have opal rings. I do not. With Dex and Int, and the rest could be resistances or health or something like that. I'm going for Frostbite Shackles. You could definitely use Swaddling of the Erased for attack and cast speed. Although these are also bugged, which right now are giving it the more damage to like everything. If you have a good Swaddling of the Erased, you also get plus all attributes, attack and cast speed. And if you can get like intelligence or dexterity here, tier 6 or 7, that would be the best, or even cast speed. But if you would like to have more, for example, more ward, you could also stack more cold resistance on your idols, on your gear, and everywhere, so that you get even more ward and be even more tanky, right? So that is something that you can do. As I said, Morning Frost here, pretty mandatory. If you want to scale your flat damage with the ladle, and then Twisted Heart, just really, really good at giving you ward. It also has a lot of nice stats on it with cast speed, plus levels of elemental spells, strength, increased health that goes up to 20%. Like just a really, really freaking strong relic here. If you can get this with 1 LP or more, great. So that pretty much covers the gear. Our idols, I just went for like regular resistances idols, just trying to fix my res as much as possible. Yeah, I mean, your resistances don't really matter too much early on because you'll get access to like the damage reduction from Flame Ward permanently while going through your Frost Wall, and also you can do Cold, Fire, Cold, which is Ruin's Frost Guard, which gives you another 30% less damage taken. Um, so you can cast this one, and then you cast your Plasma Orbs, right? The more cast speed you have, the more orbs you'll be able to like get around you. So that pretty much covers the gear. Um, in terms of our blessing, I went for the spell damage leech. There's another leech you can get here, right? So I could actually remove this since I have the blessing for the leech. But if you don't have the blessing for the leech, you definitely want to go for the lightning damage leech here, and that is going to support you enough to get started. If you want, you could also grab crit multi here, which could be pretty good as well. Went for the chance to shred lightning res because that's what the element that we're dealing. All res, physical res and armor. Technically, this could be both armor, but like go with whatever you need. Technically, the tankiness of this build is not its weakness. So if you want to go more damage, you can go for more damage. If we want to hover over our passives now, in the mage tree, pretty basic stuff. As I said, we're stacking int, so I'm stacking as much intelligence as possible. We're getting cast speed as well. You want as much cast speed and intelligence and dexterity as possible. So we're going for here. Then we could grab a little bit more crit chance and crit multi, but I think the 50 ward retention is much better. Spellblade, we're not grabbing anything. You could technically grab LA Res here. There's not much else you can grab in the Spellblade. Runemaster, where most of our points are invested, we want to grab the increased cast speed here. We want to grab the intelligence and the reduced bonus damage from crits with a catalyst, and intelligence as well with a catalyst. That's really good. You can go with crit multi with a wand, right? 72%. That is huge for us since we're using a wand with the Mad Alchemist Ladle. We're grabbing less damage taken from ignited shock or chilled enemies, so this is great DR. These points are not really mandatory. I was just messing around with the mana regen because I needed to get more mana, but I could definitely remove these points and put them somewhere else. Possibly into the crit chance and the Rune Ward Cataclysm for more damage on low health. 1 point never late to get Rune of Dilation, to get cast speed after you're using a traversal skill and movement speed, right? So 3 seconds should be enough since our cooldown is only 2.3 seconds. So long as you are using this, you know, every so often, you'll get the buff from never late pretty much always. After this, we get even more intelligence here. I would like to max this one out, actually. We get some flat damage there because most of the time we're spamming cold and lightning and fire. So you'll pretty much always get these buffs, right? So this is also going to give you more flat damage to boost your Mad Alchemist Ladle even further. And then you have the Jagged Veils for ward gain on crit and more crit multi. So also good. And when you deal more spell damage to branded bosses and rare enemies, but I need to change this one because I was thinking first of going for the fire wall here and giving the brand of trespass on enemies pass through and just casting this on bosses and stuff like that. But I actually I actually went for the lightning one so that I could just spam this and be able to cast my lightning orbs more easily. So these points I need to reinvest somewhere else actually. In the sorcerer tree, I get cast speed, I get intelligence, I get spell damage per stack, and move speed when you have 6 points in here, and arcane momentum duration. So this is basically just to get into these points here. One in the chill to be able to chill stuff as well to get more damage from our Mad Alchemist Ladle. Mad Alchemist Ladle deals more damage per stack, per negative elements on the target. So you want to get as many negative elements as possible to get as much damage as possible, right? So that pretty much covers the passives, the gear. Let's go over the skills and exactly how this functions. So runic invocation, basically, the chance to repeat per energy. So this is the most important node, runic energy. Every second you go without casting runic invocation, you gain a stack of runic energy. These are the stacks, right? So as soon as I use runic invocation, they go back to 0. I have it set up so that when I spend mana, I get a couple of stacks depending on how much mana I spent. So this makes me able to sometimes cast 2 orbs instead of 1, right? So it's like essentially a multiplier of your damage, and also you get damage per stack of runic energy when you are using this, right? So that is how I went for this setup. You could also go with a rune power core, but ultimately, after trying both of them, I decided to go with arcane battery. Rune power core would be a nice way to do so if you're going with flame rush and you're putting like more points to Scrivener's haste. Um, when you're flame rushing, it's essentially a channeling skill. You do accumulate runes as you are channeling, right? So if you keep these runes and you don't have the runic invocation at the end here, at the end of your flame rush, and then you're casting your invocation, that basically will boost up your stacks of runic energy, and then you also not being halved makes it so that you have more chance to double it. Ultimately, trying both, I think Arcane Battery is probably the best one. So we're grabbing some crit chance, some shock chance, some extra spell damage here, buff duration for 2 seconds, pretty good. Um, Flat damage here, super important. And then, of course, this one, as I said earlier, it is bugged. It's giving 7 times the amount of damage it should. But ultimately, you would grab these two for damage, more damage here and penetration there. That's how you spec Runic Invocation. Flame Ward, essentially defensive. You make it lightning to give you lightning flat damage, increased lightning damage here, because that gets converted when you're using this. Then I went for the mana regen, just for a little bit better quality of life, since I don't have as much mana as I would want to. Essentially, you could go with a helmet that has chance on casting Rune Bolt to give you 20 mana. You could also put that here, but I do not have this, so that is why I went for this thing here. Rune Bolt giving us mana, making it constantly fire, and as I said earlier, the Rune Weave stacks, the base crit chance here, and the auto targeting here. So that is pretty much basic stuff for Rune Bolt. Frostwall, essentially, again, You get the permanent flame ward. You get the more damage and the lower mana cost. Um, you convert this to lightning, so you can like alternate to cast your good invocation, to cast plasma orb, damage buff to shield enemies, and this thing here. Okay, so when you're casting it, right? If you cast it more than once, it will not cast a new one, but it will just move through you and will give you the buff that this is, the damage buff that this is giving you, right? So when you're actually playing, you want to like move it around. Um, that would kind of happen by itself, but like as you're moving through monos, you go through your walls, right? But if you're on a single target, the balls actually hit right on top of you. Is like for smaller targets, you want to be sitting right on top of the boss. And if you spam this like this and you move left and right your mouse, your wall will go through you and give you the buffs. So that will increase your damage also way more. And again, Flame Rush, nothing really important here. Basic stuff, but like getting some damage reduction, getting some ward is pretty nice. Also getting a little Fire Shred stacks on enemy pass through to get even like one more multiplier for Mad Alchemist. Ultimately, guys, this build is an absolute blast. I will be playing this probably more in the coming days. But yeah, I hope you have a great time with the Runemaster. It's pretty OP. We're expecting nerfs to 1.0, mainly bug fixes. But we've also had some pretty interesting information that lots of runic invocations are actually getting balanced in the 1.0 patch. So stay tuned for that. There might be some more runic invocations that are good, and we'll cover them if they do end up being good. As I said, that's it for today, and I hope to see you guys all in the next video.